Hello, everyone. Welcome to my Boomer Buddies podcast, where we tell it like it was and is. I'm your host, Rick Reed, and it's happened. We got a couple of diamonds here for guests today. We've got Tere, the Ace Walsh. Welcome, Tere. So glad you're here.
Thank you, Rick. It's great to be back.
And of course, my other diamond, John Hayes, is here, and he's well prepared as usual. And we've got a really fun topic. First of all, John, welcome
Thank
back.
you, Rick. It remains an honor to be considered a Boomer Buddy.
We've got a fun show today. It's dripping with nostalgia, this topic today. And it's one that is very close to the heart of John Hayes, I know. John, give us the background about the topic and why it's so special.
Yes, today I chose, and thank you for going along with us, Rick. You're a super good sport, but I chose the TV show Hee Haw. And for me, Hee Haw was, it seems like every Saturday night of my childhood, because my parents watched the show, and my parents would occasionally, periodically go out on a date, and they'd leave us with my grandparents, Grandpa and Grandma Hayes. And my grandfather was a huge fan of the show Hee Haw. And a little bit of background about him was number one, he's a very talented musician, could play any instrument. And he was part of a fairly popular local country music band in the late 1920s, early 90s. So he enjoyed the music. Grandpa had a great sense of humor, so he enjoyed all the jokes with Hee Haw. Hee Haw and doing this research for this episode just brought me back many, many positive, warm thoughts about my grandfather for this show. So thank you again for allowing us to do this.
Sure. Was he a rural guy?
Oh, yeah, big time. He sold the farm in 1970. So he grew up on a farm his whole life. They would do chores. I can't recall the radio station, but there was a radio station actually out of Nashville. And they would do chores and listen to the old-time country music broadcast from this radio station in Nashville. You could get it in North Iowa.
So he sold the farm in 1970, and the show started in 69.
Excellent.
And so he probably watched it to feel country still, you know?
Yep.
I'm guessing. Tere, what's your first memory? What brought you to watch it?
Well, it was Saturday night, and at that point, I think I was in about 10th grade. So I would babysit a lot on Saturday nights, and sometimes that would be the only thing worth watching. Also, I liked variety shows at that time. There was Ed Sullivan, Sonny and Cher, Andy Williams. They were great. Many others too, but they had a lot of different talent, so it was a fun thing to watch. We got it at the cabin, which we didn't get a whole lot at the cabin.
So, John, I keep going with the history of the show and the format.
The TV show Hee Haw aired from 1969 through 1971 on the CBS television network. The show peaked at number 16 in the Nielsen ratings for the 1970-1971 season. After that season, the show was canceled as part of the CBS network's Rural Purge, where they canceled a number of rural-themed television shows. And that list included recognizable shows such as Beverly Hillbillies, Green Acres, Mayberry RFD, Petticoat Junction, and Hee Haw. After Hee Haw was canceled, it had a very successful run in syndication, running from 1972 until its final season in 1992.
Okay, 92. Okay, so it had a long run, didn't it?
Absolutely.
They had 655 shows.
Oh, my goodness.
It's a lot.
I know I didn't see all 655 episodes, but I know they had common skits that ran through every show just with different guests. They kept it fresh somehow. And that 655, that blows me away. At the beginning, Roy Clark had the banjo and Buck Owens had that red, white, and blue acoustic guitar. It was just a sign of something good was coming. How about you, Tere? Any memories? Personal stories?
I kind of, not so much personal, but I liked the fact that it kept going and it went fast. I mean, skit, one-liner, song, and back again, and it just moved. So I enjoyed that because nothing got stale.
Yeah, it's about 44 minutes, and then of course you get the commercials that make it an hour. But I know that when they filmed it, it was in Nashville, and they did a lot of the stuff all at once. It was Okay, it'd be the scene where they had the fence that I know that John's going to talk about. They would do just a whole bunch of those and save that and edit it into shows. Or what was the other skit? You Were Gone. They would do a whole bunch of those and then mesh that. That's how they did that with all their skits. And when they did live entertainment, they would do that in front of an audience. Everything else was just in the studio with canned laughter. Little inside baseball for you on that. John, how about your personal memory?
This show reminds me, it was every Saturday night of my childhood. But I was a little surprised that it went into the 1990s because once I got older in high school and started doing things on Saturday night, going out on dates, hanging out with friends, whatever the case, I didn't watch too much Hee Haw after, 1979 or so. So I was surprised it went that much longer into the 90s even. Yeah, fun times. And I also enjoy the opening. So do you have a clip of that opening, Rick, you can play?
All right, just for you, John Hayes, and people viewing and listening here, and Terry, here we go.
Welcome to Hee Haw, starring Buck Owens and Roy Clark.
Okay, I'm going to stop it real quick. And I'm going to just tell you right here, the rest of it is some of the people that were regulars on the show. So let's take a look. And people out there watching, let's see what you think. Go ahead and comment. Any memories, just your favorite parts of it or your favorite actors in there, performers. Here we go.
I'm Buck. I'm Rowan. Hee Haw's back. Oh boy, let's go. In right now.
It's so cheesy. Kept watching it over and over and over. I just got a kick out of it. It was down-home fun. Terry, what are your thoughts after seeing this?
I thought it was funny, and there really wasn't anything else like it, even though it was a variety show. There wasn't really anything else that country on television. Also, one thing that drew me in was a lot of musical guests, so many, that I started writing them down, and then it was, okay, who wasn't on the show would probably be a shorter list, but I liked the music. I liked to see the singers performing.
How about you, John?
I'll throw out a question to you. I mean, based on the styles of that opening scene there, what do you think? That's an opening from the early 1970s, based on the thin tie and the. You have any guesses about that?
69 it started. Yeah.
Okay.
It was fun because at the times they had shows like, well, Terry said the variety shows and everything, and this was like Laugh-In. It was patterned after Laugh-In, the quick hitting little comments and jokes, and then they'd go to this skit and that skit, and then they'd have a performance and all that. It wasn't exactly like Laugh-In. It was patterned after that, the quick hitting stuff, and it worked. The formula worked. Well, we had the personal viewing experiences, our recollections of what it was like, and in the beginning, the opening always comes back to me. I think of that. Well, the regulars are big stars too. Roy Clark was phenomenal with so many instruments. And of course, Buck Owens was one of my favorites. His band was really good. And I know his band was the band for Hee Haw in the first seasons anyway. I'm not sure how many, but a very talented group right there. And then how about some of the guests they had on, up and coming, established? Do you have anything you can share with that, either of you?
Yeah, they had Tammy Wynette and George Jones were on quite a bit. They had Ray Charles and Jerry Lee Lewis, so there were just a wide variety of people. Dolly Parton. There was a singer named Bonnie Owens, who ironically was married to Buck Owens from 1948 to 53. And they got divorced, but they still collaborated and wrote music together. And then she married Merle Haggard. in 1965 to 78. And when they got divorced, they also collaborated on music. So friendly divorces, so many people.
They're also talented. You might as well stick together if you can get along.
Exactly.
So Tammy Wynette, looks like Farron Young was on there.
Glenn Campbell.
You talk about another talented musician. What a guitarist Glenn was.
Yes.
And he didn't read music or anything, and he did so much studio work. He was with the Wrecking Crew out in California. How about you, Mr. John Hayes? Any musical guests that you remember that stood out to you?
I enjoyed seeing I'll call it the old school Grand Ole Opry performers such as Chet Atkins, Hank Snow, Loretta Lynn, Johnny Cash certainly, but it was fun then towards the late 80s, early 90s to see some of the names we would hear from later in the 90s, including young Garth Brooks, Alan Jackson, Reba McEntire, George Strait. So it was fun to see the old established acts along with the new ones who eventually made a big name for themselves in the 90s.
How about cast members? Who do you remember? Who are your favorites, or who do you just remember? I know we touched on a little bit ago, but if we want to go down a little deeper in this, let's do that now.
Yeah, I enjoyed Roy Clark. He seemed like a jovial, friendly guy, super talented. I have never played the banjo, but it looks really hard. And Roy Clark could make that happen, no problem. And then we had the classics. Buck Owens was on there many, many years. Minnie Pearl. Minnie Pearl made her Grand Ole Opry appearance in 1940, so she was a Nashville mainstay. I also enjoyed Grandpa Jones. Grandpa Jones first appeared in the Grand Ole Opry in 1946 at the age of 33 years old. He just had a style and a persona that looked like a grandfather, so he became Grandpa Jones at the age of 33. But he was on the show for many, many years. I enjoyed him a lot.
That's some good people there. You mentioned Junior Samples, Junior's car sales. He just looked like a country boy that they put out there, and he was natural. That's who he was. Don't know that for sure, but I'm assuming that.
I think you're right, and I know he did struggle a bit because he couldn't read, so it was kind of hard for him, or he couldn't read very well, and so it was hard for him to do TV, but he was on there for so long.
Well, that was part of his charm.
Yeah, he was lovable. They had a girl on there named Janine Riley, and as you remember, Rick, we did a show with Jeannie C. Riley, who wrote Harper Valley PTA, who was also a musical guest on Hee Haw. They are not related. Jeannie Riley, and I know we looked this up at the last show, she was a regular on Hee Haw, but she also played Billy Joe Bradley on Petticoat Junction, so not related. Also, Gunilla Hutton was a regular on Hee Haw. She played Billy Joe Bradley on Petticoat Junction. Yeah, there's little coincidences everywhere. It seems like I have girls. Linda Thompson,
Yes.
She was a pageant winner and Elvis's girlfriend. She also married, at the time, Bruce Jenner. She also married David Foster, who's produced and directed a lot of things, now married to Catherine McPhee. So a lot of people got their starts there. Goober sang on there, and he was one of the actors, George Lindsay. Yeah, there were a lot of people that got their start there.
Yeah, they had the Hee Haw Honeys, who wore the skimpy outfits, low-cut tops, and the short shorts. Misty Rowe was on there. And she was probably my favorite of the Hee Haw Honeys. And she was in some other things as well. Yeah, they had a lot of people that got to help up there by being on that show. I think out of all the people on that show, my favorite, I'm going to say Roy Clark, if I had to pick one. And that's tough because I really like Buck Owens. But Roy Clark had a great personality, and I went down a rabbit hole. I think when he died, I looked at, and he was a guest star on a lot of other shows. I think a quasi-regular on the Jimmy Dean show, and he is a performer. Great musician and performer. He would do things with his guitar, and he had his face contoured accordingly. Check out Roy Clark and his career. It'd be worth it to you, worth your time. All right, now let's talk about the segments and the skits. I think this would be a good time to do it. I'll let you start off, John. What do you have?
All right. I've got 3 on my list, and one of my favorites, and I'll give an attempt to try to describe it, but it's the segment where a cast member would stand in front of a board fence and tell a corny one-line joke. After the punchline, one of the boards would swing up and swat the joke teller in the butt. I mean, to a kid, that is priceless humor, and I never got tired of that. So that was one of my favorite segments.
Yeah, I remember that when you brought it up off camera. I said, I remember that, yeah. And sometimes it seemed like the hittee was surprised at it, how hard it was, or not hard, or what, I don't know. They were surprised.
Definitely. That was one of mine. I also liked Junior Samples, and I think we talked about this off air, John, as well, his used cars. And I also liked when they were just laying around at the farmhouse and saying the most stupid things and one-liners, and they were just kind of all laying on the ground around the little wooden porch with the dog, and that was kind of funny because you never knew what was gonna
Yeah, you got Beauregard, dog.
Beauregard.
All right, you guys, can you guys remember the phone number for Junior Samples used car lot?
No,
Number's BR549.
I don't remember that. I don't remember it. Is there a
Does
significance?
that spell something?
I don't know. I've never checked that out, but that for some reason, of all the letters and numbers I memorized in my career, I still remember BR549.
That's good for you, because I was thinking, is that significant for something?
It could spell. I should have researched that to make sure it didn't spell out some obscene word or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a clip of one of the more popular regular skits. I'm just going to call it You Were Gone, if you remember that. So I'm going to play that now, and viewers and listeners out there, see if you remember it. Again, I'm here with John Hayes and Tere Walsh, and we're talking about Hee Haw. And we're going to get to the impact it had on America and why it was so beloved, and had 655 episodes, with a lot of the same skits, but refreshed on every show somehow. Here we go. Let's listen to it.
Now we got along, my life was real sunny, but only one thing would ruin our fun. I know you love me, but you worship money, and you got mad when I offered you none. Well, where are you tonight? Why did you leave me here all alone? I searched the world over and I thought I'd found true love. You met another and you was gone.
I got to say, I think that's my favorite skit from that show.
It is funny.
Later on, they had the person on the left be a celebrity, and they would face the back, not sideways. And then they'd get elbowed, and then they would turn all the way around, and that's when you would find out who the celebrity was. They'd do the raspberry. He was gone. That's good. I like that one. Any other skits that you want to bring up?
Yeah, I enjoyed. I'm not even sure how to describe it, but I'm going to give it a try. It was 2 guys. One of the fellows would do the rhythmic hand slapping against his leg and his chest, and the other guy would do all these goofy noises, and somehow they made it work into like a rhythmic little song thing. Again, as a little kid, that seemed fascinating to me, that they'd created this goofy thing, and maybe it doesn't seem like something you'd see on TV, but maybe something you'd see at a kegger or a party. Hey, look what this guy can do. But I always enjoyed it, and it made my grandfather laugh every time when he saw that skit. He got a huge charge out of those guys, so it was popular in my book too.
Well, how about if we take a look at, I've got a really short clip, about 37 seconds, so we can take a look at that in honor of your grandfather.
Please, that'd be awesome.
All right.
How do you describe that?
Amazing.
That's only 37 seconds, and I think the whole thing was a couple minutes, maybe even 3 minutes of that. I got to tell you that my dad taught me. I could probably do that if I worked on it, but maybe I should.
There's a future in television for you, Rick. Work on it.
There's a lot of stuff that from back in the day, they had to entertain themselves. They didn't have these, these phone things and, that we're so obsessed with now. But that was just good, clean, making noise. And John, I don't know what that was. I really don't. But
I don't either.
It was on. It was viewers and listeners. If you know more about that, just go ahead and comment below. Share, like, subscribe, and God, boy, Hee Haw was. I can't explain why it was so successful, but it was. And it's not often I don't have any words. I'm at a loss right now, but it's entertaining and it's corny, whatever you want to call it. And I'm having a good time revisiting it right now.
Absolutely. I mean, Hee Haw proved a show didn't need critical praise in order to be a success. I mean, it's corny and goofy, but yeah, it ran for 20 plus years. So there's no arguing the success of that.
We did a Lawrence Welk show, which was corny. That was John, you and I. And here's another perfect example of how do you explain it? It was a success. It hit a certain audience, and it was a curiosity for others. And I think all these years later, there might be newer generations discovering it and kind of in wonder about it. Terry, you like to watch shows that had entertainment on it. And is there another show besides Lawrence Welk and this that you can compare to it in your mind?
I really liked Andy Williams' show. I liked that one. I liked Carol Burnett.
Yes.
They did a lot of skits and had a musical guest on every time, but that was so funny. Probably Laughing, I would say. It was based on Laughing country style or something.
Yeah, and all these shows that were mentioned weren't everybody's cup of tea. Lawrence Welk, Laugh-In, Hee Haw, but they were successful and they stood the test of time, really, because they all went into syndication. But I got to say, Hee Haw right now, I bet there's a lot of stuff that we didn't know about that would be very interesting, some trivia. So this would be a good time, John. If you have any trivia, let's roll it out.
Well, I've got some trivia. You mentioned the Hee Haw Honeys, and I've got a couple of tidbits about the Hee Haw Honeys. And those are the female cast members dressed a little bit like the farmer's daughter, Little Abner type of thing. And there was one particular young lady, her name was Shelley DeBoer, and she appeared in one 1979 episode of Wonder Woman with Linda Carter.
Linda.
And again, speaking about the Hee Haw Honeys, I spent a lot of time in this research, but 3 of those young ladies were featured in a rather prominent men's magazine. And I'll let you finish the research on that.
Field and Stream?
Yeah, pretty much. And even thinking more about this, so on Saturday nights, we had 2 choices for television shows. I mean, they aired at the same time. It was Lawrence Welk and Hee Haw. And I think related to the Hee Haw Honeys, that could probably explain a lot, because then later in my teenage years, in my early 20s, I chased a lot of the women that reminded me of the women on Hee Haw, and I really should have maybe chased the women who reminded me of the women on Lawrence Welk. I think that was part of my problem. But
well, they had some honeys on there too.
Absolutely, yeah.
I just want to mention, they were apparently clean cut, and remember they did a version of One Toke Over the Line.
Yes.
Terry remembers that.
Oh my gosh.
The Wild Side.
That was so funny. Yeah.
A modern day spiritual. But I'm sorry, I interrupted you, John.
No, it's quite all right. I had one other little bit of trivia. Earlier in the show, we saw a clip of the Hager twins. The Hager twins attended high school in Park Ridge, Illinois, and they were in the same high school as a fellow you might have heard of. He went on to be the actor Harrison Ford. So Harrison Ford went to high school with the Hager twins.
Really?
Yeah.
I remember them very well. Do you have any other trivia?
That's it for my trivia.
So we cleaned you out. How about you, Terry? Any other observations?
I was kind of surprised, and John just touched on this, about some of the cast members being in a gentleman's magazine. I have to say, I was pretty surprised when I saw Barbie Benton on there, because she was whatever she was, Playmate of the Year and Hugh Hefner's girlfriend, and then Joe Namath's girlfriend. And this is where she got her start after a certain magazines. Yeah.
What would you say is the cultural impact of Hee Haw and what's its legacy? If you could define that.
I would say it kept country music alive when rock and roll and pop music were becoming very popular. It kept country music in loop, and that's kind of my thought on it.
I think hee haw helped to legitimize country music as a valid music genre, and I'm going to go on a limb here and say the explosion we had in the popularity of country music in the 90s can trace its roots back to hee haw.
Interesting. And I look at it this way. Hee Haw was great because they didn't take themselves too seriously. They kind of poked fun at themselves and all that, but they're very proud. If they were country, they were very proud of it and kept it in the limelight, like Terry was saying. I watched it more as a here and there curiosity, and when I watched it, I enjoyed it. Thank you, Hee Haw. So the legacy overall is it was a successful show, and people still know, if they don't know a lot about it, they know about Hee Haw. And what more can you say? What more can you ask? Final thoughts for Terry.
Fun show to do. It was fun to rewatch some old episodes and reacquaint myself with them. But there were so many people on that show, regulars and guests, that you could watch it for a long, long time with 655 episodes.
John Hayes.
Yeah, I enjoyed the research I did, and it was a nice trip down memory lane. Just thinking of my grandfather and how much he enjoyed hee haw. But I think overall the show, as we talked about it, it reshaped television, elevated country music, and gave the rural audiences a lasting voice.
And I'll say it was fun to rediscover it again. What I really liked about it, be able to share that and just smile when I hear hee haw. For Tere Walsh, John Hayes, I'm Rick Reed. Until next time.
We'll see you
Around the block.